give him a little snippet on the front end.
There we go. And then you'll have to keep Weaver busy for a moment while I tweet this out.
All right, cool. We actually have more questions, Matt, than I think we've gotten normally. That might be the bulk of the show, is just answering some of those questions, because some actually are very intriguing, and then some of them, of course, are silly, which is sort of part of the deal. Did you by chance, I'm assuming the answer is no, but did you by chance listen to Jeff Gluck's podcast with Jay Pinnell today?
No, and I want to, because I think the world of Jay, and I feel like we kind of have similar backgrounds and drives, and we actually both kind of came up in the same way too, in the sense that Jay first connected with Jeff at SB Nation, which is the same way I first met Jeff, and so we were both kind of like, if this was like a coaching tree, Jay and I are both on Jeff Gluck's coaching tree.
Well, so that's what I thought. That was one of the first thoughts I had when he was going through his story. So anyway, I'll stop there because I'm sure we can make this part of the podcast at some point.
Yeah, yeah. We're rocking and rolling now. We are live on YouTube.
No.
Yes, sir. Mash this button. Hello, nice snowy March day here in Northeast Ohio.
Oh, there it is.
I'll tell you what, it's been snowing everywhere except the Southeast. Weaver, what's it doing where you're at?
Well, it's actually much colder than it has been the past couple of days. But if you go up 1 hour west towards the mountains, they've actually got snow there. So Snow ain't that far away.
I got sunburned on Saturday.
Well, Banner Elk.
I put sunscreen on everywhere except my forearms, and I was like, whatever, my forearms, they'll be fine. And I mean, lobster sitting out there for the Xfinity race and part of the truck race. But 80 damn degrees.
Yeah. I actually, not once. We've gotten pretty good about being adults about sunscreen, but I did not get sunburnt, I'm happy to say, which means I covered all the right places with the whatever that dreaded chemical is.
Yeah. I was about to say DEET, but that's for bugs.
Yeah.
Don't have to worry about those at the racetrack, thank goodness.
Not in February, you don't.
No.
I was fortunate enough the past 2 weekends that Cassie actually tagged along, and she is such a stickler when it comes to sunscreen and slapping that crap on my head. And I complain about it, but I'm sitting here not sunburned, and my skin isn't falling off, so I guess I shouldn't complain.
I used to be cavalier about it, and for good reason. I shouldn't say for good reason. I mean, skin cancer's a thing. But I never got sunburned. I was fine. I shouldn't say never. Like, we go to Vegas or something, I forget to put it on. That's a mess. But it was after one time where I went, oh, no, I don't get sunburned. And then I was laid out for 2 days after that. And I said, all right, well, that's enough of that. And now me and Sherwin are adults when it comes to that.
Right.
Not 20-something.
As it turns out, if you put on 30 SPF, you can actually still get tan. You just won't burn.
Mm-hmm. So, there it is. Well, Weaver, let's start getting this thing on the road. As usual, we might go radio silent on you for, 1 or 2 minutes while the theme song is playing. But then after that, we'll be right back with you. You'll hear us come back. Won't be a problem. We'll get rolling.
Stand for.
All right, let's see here. Open that with Windows Media Player, and then it's probably going to start playing. Yeah, no, I'm not trying to start yet. I'm just trying to make sure I get. Yeah, I'm trying to. I have to open it so that I can go hit play on it real quick.
So, did you hear those couple of times, like last 2 shows, where I think you were monkeying around with getting prepared to do a drop, and all of a sudden it was we were swallowing the mics, and we were 900 decibels. Did you hear any of that?
I'll have to try to figure that out and see what happens. There's no telling. Probably some weird feedback loop and all these wires.
Oh, I'm sure.
10 wires, 20 wires going around. Oh, man.
It never lasted more than about 4 or 5 seconds, but it was crazy.
Suddenly just,
yeah, it was wide open.
Well, that'll happen. All right. Well, let's do this. Sherwin, you ready?
Yep.
Weaver, ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. We are recording now. Clean up your mess.
Talladega to Daytona, Bristol, Charlotte, it's an way NASCAR.
Welcome, y'all! That's right. This is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast, episode number 136. It's Thursday, March 1st, 2018. I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace, joining the PTM Podcast studio with a very messy Andrew Sherwin. What's up, dude?
Yeah, I'm just knocking drinks over, spilling them everywhere. We're not even. I mean, I think we got a good show, but I didn't start off so good.
That's right. Well, clean yourself up. While you're cleaning yourself up, I'm going to do the little
Jeff
intro
Gordon's going to
here.
give me the collar tug and punch me in the face. That's this deal.
This podcast is sponsored by you. That's right. You go to patreon.com/PTM and join the What You Drinking Club for as little as $1 a month to get that free koozie. Best part is every cent in 2017. It ain't 2017 no more.
No,
it's been
it's
2
definitely
months,
2018.
full months. 2018, we're donating to sponsored drivers. Join the PTM posse today. Be a part of the sport you love. This week's show is brought to you by our official sponsors at the $5 and up per month level. That's Catherine Kingston, Ashley Stang, Laura Henshaw, Harry Bolzania, Mick Rose, Aaron Bearden, Robert Kepling, Tony Salt, Colby McClam, Eric Kepner, Ryan Kiefer, Marion Levesque, Patrick Cleary, Jeff Brown, Brandon Crowd, Kathleen McDonald, Stacy Wright, Brandon Carl, Billy Workman, Rika Porter, and John B. Bob and Les Miller. And welcome to the PTM Posse, Mr. Brad Harrison.
All right.
Yeah, so holy cow.
Brad gave us a hell of a tour of the garage of Thursday Thunder last summer.
Yeah, so Brad Harrison is, I talked about this earlier this week on our friends over at MOATF, that we, had befriended the social media manager over at AMS, and he totally hooked us up this summer. I mean, that was fantastic. And so now he's a sponsor of the show. That's so cool. So welcome to the Posse, Brad. With that, it's time to welcome on our guest tonight. Sherwin, I think 3 weeks in a row, we've had a PETM PhD. So,
Right, but now we have something more significant than that.
oh, yes, sir. It is what you called the Dean of Short Tracks, Mr. Matt Weaver. What's up, Weaver?
It's good to be back on the podcast, guys. To me, I feel like this is kind of a homecoming of sorts. You guys are having me on before anyone even cared who Matt Weaver was, and so to be able to talk racing with y'all, this is the highlight of my month easily so far.
Man, we are humbled and amazed at that. And we knew who Matt Weaver was before they knew who Matt Weaver was. That's fine. Oh, no, it's great to be on. What you been up to, man?
Trying my best to keep things in perspective a little bit. Obviously, racing season for me is not something that lasts from February to November, so I'm constantly keeping busy. I went down to Daytona, 3 times already this year for the Roar before the 24, the Rolex, and for Daytona, and obviously we just came back from Atlanta and several short track races in between. IndyCar is about to get started, so it's kind of like you're just hanging on, and it's a fun life, but it's really hard to try to keep balance, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, before we get too deep, you know how it is. What sort of 6-word drink are you drinking on today?
This is always a fun question for me, obviously, because I don't drink. So, it's always like, what oddball, beverage does Weaver have today? And it's just a Diet Cherry Pepsi that's on the menu today.
Diet Cherry Pepsi. 3 words. I expect more out of Weaver on the PTM podcast, though. No, that's cool.
That is maybe too short of a description, right?
That's what I'm going for. It needs to have the words double and chai and something else in there. We know how Weaver rolls on that. Sherwin, I brought for us today, out of this Beer of the Month Club thing that I've got, this Rayu's Black IPA. So we'll dig into that here in a little bit.
Black out is probably what's going to happen in the last 15 minutes of the show.
Holy mackerel. This thing, so the last time we did, this is 10% alcohol. We're done. We're
good.
toast. Oh,
If we
man.
survive this, well, you've already plowed through it. If we survive this mixed drink and this glass pistol of tequila over here, who knows what's going to happen?
It's going to be way off the rails.
Try to keep Matt safe.
That's right. We've got a boatload of show notes this time, which is crazy. But we'll just dive right in, Sherwin, with car number 36. It's our 136th episode, car number 36. 36 is another winless car. which is amazing to me. I don't know how that in the Cup Series, of course. I don't know how we keep coming up with some of these numbers.
I'm surprised by that because Kenny Schrader drove that car. And I know he didn't have a tremendous amount of Cup wins, but, I mean, obviously there was something fairly significant that happened while he was in that car, and M&M's was on the car, and it happened 17 years ago, and we don't have to get into that because we've got into it a ton in the past. But, yeah, I'm surprised that – I really am surprised whenever we run across a number from 1 to 99 that hasn't won a race.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much NASCAR that's happened between 1949 and 2018.
Well, Kenny Schrader with 106 races in that car, no wins there. Larry Thomas, 97 races, 13 top 10s. And Tommy Irwin with 36 races and 14 top 10s. Our driver's spotlight this week is going to be H.B. Bailey with 85. Listen to this. 85 races, all in the 30. I'm like, my voice is cracking because I'm so excited about this.
You going through puberty again?
Yes, sir. 85 races over 31 years. Like, holy cow, what was he doing?
So he was like, what, 2.5 races a year?
Something like that. 5 top 10s, all in 36, like I said. He started racing at Playland Park a year after A.J. Foyt started racing there. So that's kind of a cool, little deal that he had there. He was a track champion there in 1959. He moved on to NASCAR a few years later. He had a little bit of success in that other NASCAR series. In 1972, Grand American Division had a second-place finish and was with he was an independent guy. He was building his own stuff. Yeah, I think some other people race his cars. What happened, too. He passed away in 1993, but Richard Petty had said, our sport was built by people like HB. Apparently, they raced alongside each other quite a bit. And he was building his own stuff. He was driving himself to the track. All that, all the stuff that you hear about the old school guys. So the hats are off and the drinks are up to Mr. H.B. Bailey.
Hats off, drinks up.
Yeah. Mr. Weaver, have you had any research into H.B. Bailey before?
Not too deeply. I know, the only thing I really know about H.B. Bailey is he actually had one of the best beards in NASCAR history. And beyond that, I really don't know much about him. But, gosh, he seemed like such a character just visibly because, I think there are certain guys who you can just look at from afar, and they kind of carry this kind of larger-than-life persona. And, again, I never, had any sort of interactions or I don't know anything about HB before my time. But he just seemed kind of like a larger-than-life figure right out of, stock car racing lore, and by all accounts, that's exactly who he was.
So the reason he's the driver spotlight is exactly what you said at the very beginning there. I was like, all right, who are we going to spotlight? I know these other names. These are other big names. I like to spotlight somebody maybe folks hadn't heard of before. And I searched H.B. Bailey, NASCAR, and the first thing was an image of probably one of the top 10 beards I've ever seen. This guy was fantastic with the beard and the hair.
Beard, huh?
Long hair, beard, like hippie. Is straight up hippie driving a car around. So that was.
So I need to grow my hair out.
Well, he had good versatility, right? Because you could look at him in one picture and you would think hippie. You could look at another one and you would think Amish. So there's just really good versatility there.
I like that word, versatility, for that. There's your
really dynamic beard.
Dynamic beard. One we could all strive toward for sure. Sherwin, I think we ought to go ahead because we're going to be talking about this for a little while and tear it down at Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know that how can we not talk about that experience?
Yeah. So we were, I think, we were chatting with you a little bit while we were there and everything, and it's our first time, and we owe a debt of gratitude. Go ahead, Sherwin.
Hold on, Matt. Were you there? Were you at Atlanta?
Was I aware?
Were you at Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Why the hell didn't we see?
So this was kind of my policy. I was there on Friday, and on Friday, it's media day. I'm running back and forth across the garage trying to track down stories. On Saturday, I actually went old school. I went up in the grandstands and watched the races from turn one, middle of the stands a little bit. And then on Sunday, this is actually kind of breaking into my a folly of mine, but on Sunday I got to the track around 9:30 in the morning, and I had zero intentions or conviction that we would cover a race on Sunday. I looked at the forecast and I said, "Nah, son, ain't happening." But I went to the track anyway because I said, you know what, I need to make an appearance and show everyone that, you know, I gave them my full valley of support that I thought they were going to get this race in, even though I thought they wouldn't. I had made plans with my family, who I stay with in Atlanta. I had told my little cousins, I said, yeah, I'm going to come back from the racetrack in like 2 hours, and I'm going to cook tonight, and we're going to have a good old time. And so I actually went to Walmart at about like whenever that first rainstorm hit, the one
right
that
at
postponed the race eventually.
Yeah,
right at when the tweet up
Yeah,
was going to start.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. I went to Walmart to go grocery shopping because I told my little cousins, 2 twins and a younger sister, I told them that I was going to come back and cook. And so it starts to get closer to noon, and the forecast starts to improve, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, this thing is actually going to happen. Not that I had a problem with the race, because I'm glad fans got to see the race, and I'm glad all the media, especially Jeff Gluck, who had booked a flight for early on Monday morning, could cover the race.
Yep.
It's just I was so convinced we were not going to cover this race. I was not in race mode. So I had to run back to the house where my family was, drop off the groceries, and say, I've got to run to the track. This thing's happening. And so I got there for driver intros, and it was fine. We covered the race, and I feel like the content was okay. We saw a hell of a race. But I just swear, all morning I looked at that forecast, and I said, there's no way this is happening. And if you look at the radar, it stayed like 25 miles north of us. That's how narrow we were able to get that race in. And so you guys didn't see me because on Saturday I watched from the stands, and then on Sunday I didn't show up till practically green flag because I had no idea this thing was actually happening.
It was crazy. I've said this earlier, but during the drivers' meeting, Ed Clark, president of Atlanta Motor Speedway, stands up there and he says, "Hey, you know," and he's telling us stuff, and we'll get to why in the world we were even at this drivers' meeting in a minute, but. He was saying, guys, there's a narrow window that we might be able to get this thing in, and like there was an audible and visual reaction from the crowd, is what I would put it. Where people in the back were looking at each other, drivers were kind of laughing, people nudging each other with the elbow, like this guy's gone bonkers, I guess. But in the end, I guess he gets a last laugh. That was very. I don't know. It ended up perfect. It ended up amazing to sit there in the stands and watch that race. Me and Sherwin, same way. I mean, we were just laughing it off, and we were even talking about, are we even going to come on Sunday? You know, are we even going to show up at the track? We were talking about that on Saturday. Should we even show up on Sunday, or should we drive back to Atlanta, like Atlanta proper, where I live, right here, and just drink beer and not go to the race? And the only reason we went, Sherwin, if you, I know you remember, it was just a few days ago, was this media pass and hookup that Atlanta Motor Speedway we owe them a whatever
huge debt of gratitude.
Debt of gratitude is the word I'm looking for to what what they gave us here, which was pretty much it's media credentials light. You know, it's all right. Well, you can get on the pits, but not when it's hot. You can go in the media center, but we don't necessarily want you in the deadline room. But you can get in the other stuff, and you can go in and out of the stands and whatnot. And but that was such a huge. I was talking to Sherwin, like it didn't feel like light at all. It was so much more access. It was so much more than we'd ever done. We were just flabbergasted by it on Saturday. Then we said, well, we got to come back Sunday just to walk around the garage and stuff.
Well, because we knew based on what the forecast was that it wasn't going to start raining until 10, 11 o'clock. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, my parents live 8 miles from the track. If we get up at normal, reasonable time, which now, as we've discussed, as adults means we're totally capable of getting up at 7:30 on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning.
Yeah, yeah.
And we can go spend 2.5 hours in the garage and maybe just totally capture all of the value of this experience of having the media credentials. And then we're like, well, you know what? It's not like pouring rain yet. Let's walk over to the under. We knew there was a causeway there between Earnhardt stands and the main grandstands, which is only, 200 feet at the most from where the tweet up is. And of course, we go over there, and there's Jeff Gluck and Aaron Bearden. There was another guy. Yeah, Rusty's showing the credentials now.
Yep.
And like it comes raining down like as as we are wont to say in the South, like a cow pissing on a flat rock. It come a-raining. And it was like, oh, man, I don't know. But it only lasted about 10 minutes, and then it let up.
Yep.
And
It let up.
like,
they got their drying effort going.
And Jeff went down there, and, like, he didn't come back, and we're like, hey, man, we didn't come here to miss this.
Right. We got us some rain ponchos and went off to the tweet up and everything. Weaver, here's my question for you. The first time that you had, because the whole weekend we're sitting there going, we're not supposed to be here, but these passes say we can. What was some of your first experiences like that, and does that still kind of, I don't know, hold true today in some respects if you sort of take that 30,000-foot view and go, wow, I can't believe I'm standing here?
So I feel like I was fortunate to a degree in the sense that before I covered a NASCAR race, obviously I was working at Mobile International Speedway doing PR, so I know my way around racing circles and things like that. But before I covered my first NASCAR race, which was 2011 at Talladega, the week before that, and then of course I've been to racetracks, NASCAR races, over the years as a fan, but the week before Talladega, I had actually covered the IndyCar race at Barber Motorsports Park in Alabama, and that was the first time that I'd ever covered a major professional motorsports event. And so I was able to kind of like ease into kind of the nuances of how it worked, because the NASCAR Media Center and the IndyCar Media Center isn't drastically different, and there's actually on occasion some crossover. You'll see Jenna Fryer at a bunch of IndyCar races. Lee Spencer will show up for the occasional IndyCar race as well. So there was a degree of crossover, especially having Talladega or Barber and Talladega back to back. You saw some people just stay in Alabama for both of them, and so I feel like I was lucky in that sense. But I was still very much more of a fan than I was even a reporter back then.
Yep.
I was starstruck by everything. I remember going to Talladega. You know, to me, I had this moment, and this moment still sticks out. I was staying at this rest area, sleeping in my truck, and I've told you guys stories like this before, but I was staying in my truck at this rest area off of I-20, about 30 minutes away from the Speedway. And even though I'm sleeping in my truck this weekend, I would stop by Walmart and buy canned pasta and eat inside my truck. I had this moment on the Saturday night before the Cup race. It was raining, and you could hear the rain falling on the metal roof of my truck. And I had kind of like this moment that I think has driven me ever since, to where I'm like, this is the coolest thing in the world. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up, I'm going to go cover a NASCAR race in person. At the time, I have no problem admitting this now, but at the time, my favorite driver was Jeff Gordon. I grew up a Jeff Gordon fan. So Jeff Gordon was on the pole, so I was giddy about that. It's like, it's my first race that I'm covering as a reporter, and my driver is on the pole and looks like he has a chance to win. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I'm like, I've had fun on Friday and Saturday, and I had fun at Barber. And I'm like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And that memory has actually, driven me ever since. But a funny side story, and I can't believe that I've never told you guys this story, because I don't think it made it in the Matt Weaver Stories podcast, because I had forgot about it till now. That same weekend, my first weekend covering a NASCAR race, the most Matt Weaver thing possible happened. I had, because it was raining and it was kind of cold at night, I had turned on the truck and I turned on the heater for about 15, 20 minutes just to heat up the inside of my truck. It was really cold because, Talladega's up in the mountains a little bit. So I heated up the truck and I had turned the ignition off. But apparently I did not turn the ignition all the way off. So not the main lights, but your secondary lights. I forget what they call those, but like your hazard lights or whatever.
Lights.
Those lights, they were still on. And so I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning to make that 45-minute drive down to the track. Because I was super giddy back then, so I needed to get to the track like at sunrise. And I woke up and I couldn't turn my truck on because I killed my battery. And I'm sitting at this rest area in BFE, Alabama, and I'm getting out and I'm looking so helpless. And luckily there was this guy who I think was going to the race that morning too, because he had the camper, big bearded fellow. He said, did you kill your battery? I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, here, let me help you out. And so it just took 15 minutes to get my truck cranked, and I'll never forget it. I wish I could remember who the guy was now, because it just kind of made me covering my first NASCAR race such a strong experience and memory. And I got to the racetrack, and I covered the race that day. I came back to my truck, and I had locked my keys in my truck because I was so excited to get in the media center after what had happened that morning. And I had to call a guy to come in and pick my truck to get my key out. So it was just ridiculous. It was the most Matt Weaver thing ever, but that's the stuff that dreams are made out of.
That's fantastic. Sherwin, this is how giddy I am. Like, I haven't taken the Media Lot sticker off my truck yet. Like, I'm driving it around Atlanta to just kind of show it off a little bit,
I don't blame you. I was trying to figure out yesterday and today and all week where to hang my credential that you're holding right there in your hand. I'm like, where can I hang this? Like, I went over to the deer head, and I'm like, what can I hang here? All right, I got the cowboy hats decorated and the deer antlers here. I'm like, where can I put this thing? Like, it's not going away. Like, it's going to be shown.
Right.
Because it was, by far the coolest experience we've had yet.
My girlfriend is also a journalist, and I don't know if you saw this during the winter break, but we had decorated a Christmas tree, and we're both reporters, so we both have tons of credentials and badges and my old hard cards. And I actually still have all of my old paper credentials from back before I had a hard card.
Oh, wow.
And that Talladega 2011 race was actually front and center on our Christmas tree, just because that race stood out to me. So don't lose those, because those are so cool, and the memories you create going to races like that are things that you never will and never should forget.
Well, that's funny you say that. I went to the ISM website today just to see, what if there was any opportunity for us, even though it's really short notice. But we're going to Phoenix next week. And it was like, you have to be with a reputable source and on assignment. And I'm like, that's not us. No. So I'm not even going to mess with this and waste anybody's time. But
we already bought tickets.
We have tickets, so we're just going to goof around and hopefully.
Yeah, we're going to be fans for that one. Yeah, it'll be a good time. Yeah, it was funny. My wife was looking at some pictures, and because we had these lanyards and stuff around her neck, she's like, y'all look so official. She's seen a million pictures of us at the track being fans. And she's like, you're like in a collared shirt, and you've got the thing on, and you don't look like hell, and like you've had a shower in the last 3 days. She's like, y'all look like you belong there. I'm like, well, looking is half the battle, I guess.
Yeah, we were trying to behave ourselves as best we could.
My favorite one was when we went to the Cup drivers meeting, and I mentioned it before, but it was just outside so we had been already to the truck.
We went to the trucks.
Meeting.
We missed the Xfinity.
Yep, we missed the Xfinity.
Late.
Well, we missed it, and then we tried to open the door.
Because we were at the tweet up though. Like, there was no.
Yeah, we missed the Xfinity, but we made the trucks, and so we knew we had the right credentials to walk in that room, right? And the dude at the door, the sergeant at arms guy, right? He's like former military or whatever. He's
Marine. 5'7".
Oh yeah, but he will whip your ass up and down.
Oh yeah, he would have killed me
every day, right,
easily.
Right. And he's looking at us, and y'all, I'm telling you, he goes, "Who are you?" He looks at our credentials, and he's like, "I don't care about these. Who are y'all with?" And Sherman goes, "PETM Racing Podcast," and he starts pointing at the credentials, like it says it right here. And I'm like, "Well, that ain't gonna work."
Well,
we're doomed.
You've told this story a couple times. You left out the first thing I said, and I think it's because you didn't hear me, because maybe I got to him before you. But he said, "Who are you with?" And I said, "I'm with me."
I'm with me. Well, who are you with?
All right, so no, really, who are you with? And I'm like, PTM Racing Podcast.
Yeah, it's right here on
What
the
are you
thing.
here to do? Like, you asking questions? I'm like, no, we're here to stand in the back and watch. Like, we're not.
Yeah. And he's like, all right, keep it quiet and stand way in the back. I'm like, well, I'm not going to go sit in Casey Kane's lap, although I would. I'm not going.
What did you think we were going to do?
Yeah. So that was one of those. We tested the limits of these passes the entire week.
That's true. We walked all the way up to pit road while they were drying it off, and one guy walks over. He's nice as hell. And he taps me on the shoulder and he goes, "Hey, man, our instructions were to keep people off the concrete. You know how, like, there's like one layer of concrete on the, like, the garage side of the pit wall, and like while they're they were just running the vacuum thing, but they were about to bring the jet dryers down.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, it's kind of a safety deal. And I'm like, hey, man, there's no worries. I said, look, I mean, you get a pass like this, if you don't get told you're in the wrong spot, you ain't trying hard enough. And he's like, I got you.
Oh, man. Weaver, have you ever been kicked out of an area due to credentials or lack thereof?
I told you guys about the time that I had my hard card confiscated at Daytona, I believe, right?
Yep. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, so there was the Austin Dillon crash, and I was just trying to take pictures of the fence, and the security guy didn't totally understand what we were trying to do. It was me and Dustin Long, and so yeah, for those who hadn't heard the story, I got into an argument trying to justify my existence as a credentialed member of the media, and this guy was having none of it, and he essentially goaded me into calling him a jerk, so he snatched my hard card away, and I had to go back to the NASCAR glass office in Daytona to get it the next morning.
That's hilarious because that's where we're at. I think if we were at your level where we're actually like, this is like my professional job I'm trying to perform in terms of pushing the limits on what's okay and what's not. When somebody's acting like a jerk, you just got to tell them.
Yeah.
Hey, man, like you're acting like a jerk. We can figure this out, but
or if you
you're
want
acting like a jerk.
If you want to have your head around this thing. So we did try to drive on pit road accidentally, if you remember when we first came in.
Oh, yeah.
And we were trying to – so that's the funny part.
Oh, yeah, we missed our turn.
Right, missed our turn trying to find the media lot and tried to turn on pit road, and a dude's like, no, you're not going here. And my reaction was like, I need you to come here to tell me like where.
Oh, and I was periscoping in the process.
Oh, yeah,
that's all
true.
on Periscope.
Yeah, that is.
And
on
people
video.
laughed a lot at that.
Yeah, that was great.
We play dumb better than any smart kids we know.
Yeah, I can play dumb with you, and he
I don't even know where I'm supposed to be at.
And props to him, he was totally cool. He probably deals with a bunch of a-holes every race weekend and has to do this speech 20 times. And he gave us a little speech and told us where to go, and everything was great. And then as soon as we pulled away, we completely forgot every direction.
We didn't even know where we were supposed to go. We knew we were supposed to go right, but there was like 14 rights. Mm-hmm. And I think we screwed up again, didn't we?
Yeah,
I believe we
probably.
did.
Probably.
Yeah.
But that's funny that
we drove through the grass at one point. I see where we're supposed to be at.
Weaver said it, but we met Ross Chastain at the Tweet Up. And that was really cool to meet Ross Chastain. But he had said at the very end, he goes, I've lost my hard card. Not I've lost it. They put it on the truck and drove it back to Charlotte or wherever they went. And he said he had to go get a new hard card just to, like, I mean, he's a driver, like
in all three series.
In all three series, he drives, and he has to go get new credentials at the office because they're not going to let him in. And, he's not a Jimmy Johnson recognizable face.
It's like on the sheet, like, Ross Chastain, driver of the number XYZ card.
Right.
I'm supposed to drive today.
Yeah. So with that, let's move on to some racing deal here. So we'll start with trucks. I mean, Brett Moffitt, holy crap. Matt, with his storied career thus far, what a huge win and huge ordeal for him to take home that trophy. What do you think?
I mean, I think that was a huge win and a huge storyline on several fronts. I mean, let's start off with the situation that presented itself to allow him to win, which was the misfortune on pit road of the Ford truck and Kyle Busch.
Mm-hmm.
But just kind of hyper spotlighting on Hattori and Brett Moffitt. These are journeymen, everyman type of racers. This was the first time that Hattori Racing Enterprises has won a Truck Series race, and Shiki Hattori has been doing this for a long time now. And I think sometimes we forget that Brett Moffitt. It wasn't that long ago that Brett was still considered a top prospect. He was part of the Michael Waltrip Racing diversity and development program, and when that team fell apart, so did his opportunities and chances. Obviously he had that really good run subbing for Brian Vickers. I think it was Vegas that's come and race here. But this is a guy that's been traveled and has been all over the place, and people had kind of forgot about him a little bit. And I think it was a good fit whenever Ryan Truex had the opportunity to be able to go drive for, Kaulig Racing in the Xfinity Series, it just made sense. This was a driver who didn't have funding, who was looking for a team, and it was a team who had a degree of funding, who was looking for a driver, and, you start to say who works out well for each other, and this was it. So for them to be able to win this early and to be able to immediately punch their ticket to the playoffs, because remember, Truex had missed it on a tiebreaker last year, so Shiggy's team did not advance into the playoffs, and now they're already locked in, and they can start to figure out what they're going to do come September, and, that's a huge opportunity for a team, that could be looking for additional partners and funding. So for them to be able to say, look, this is Brett Moffitt, he's our driver, he's one of the more underrated but still highly touted prospects in NASCAR, we're going to the playoffs, and, we got some opportunities on our truck. That win was huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And so my media respect, it's not that it's this is weird to say. It's not that it wasn't high enough already, but me and Sherwin decided for the truck race, we're going to go down to Victory Lane. And so with 30 laps to go, we run down and go down and get over to Victory Lane and all that. And suddenly, that's when the Kyle Busch stuff happened, and that's when the Brett Moffitt thing happened. To be able to even follow that as someone who's like just running around with chicken with their head cut off sort of deal, and then be able to write about it or whatever, and then standing over in Victory Lane, and he's getting excited and stuff. A whole new experience there. But again, we were experiencing it. To have to relay that experience to someone else is, what y'all do is just, I don't know how,
Conversely, I think that I can kind of turn this around on you guys, because you were there in kind of the infield kind of media position. I was in the grandstands for that race. And to me, I really appreciated being able to watch it from the grandstands, because, look, I respect the hell out of Kyle Busch. He is one of the best, not the best, pure drivers in NASCAR. But if we're just calling a spade, no one likes the guy. And so when his tire fell off in turn one, and I'm in the grandstands with fans, and I realize it because I'm not in the media center. I don't have access to the TV. I experienced that moment, and I found out the same time the fans found out. And so it's kind of like the wave, when the fans do the wave at baseball parks. It kind of travels over from turn one to the front stretch. That's his tire. That's Kyle Busch. And so to be a part of that moment when everyone starts to stand up and cheer, or you see the Kyle Busch fan kind of bury his head in his hands, to be able to experience that from a fan standpoint was truly remarkable too. And I think I almost enjoyed that more than what I would have if I was on pit road talking to crew members or fellow media members, because that's why we all do this. That's why we prefer to watch races in person instead of on TV. Yep. You want that kind of raw, unfiltered, you're in the moment kind of experience, and I had that with fans as a fan on Saturday night.
And we were there. We had just got to pit road when that happened, and we for the first time we heard the first time in my NASCAR fandom career, hearing the cheers from the stands pointed toward you. That was it was incredible, the noise level that people were making when that happened, and folks wanted to see somebody like Brett Moffitt take it there. So that was a unique experience for us too, I think. Sherwin, you remember seeing that? Yeah. Or hearing that, rather?
Well, so the thing that really stuck out to me, though, is when we knew what was going on, because we could sort of hear what was happening on the pylon, like under the caution laps. You could kind of hear the announcer, and you could look at the pylon and go, that's not what we expected. And we couldn't see the TV screens from where we were, but everybody sort of knew what was going on, like you said, based on the fan reaction. And then to see that restart, and I'm like, hey, man, I think this is it. We were just kind of like, they went around, and then they went around, and I think this is it. And then you see the car come across, and I think it was so cool to me, and probably to you too, Rusty, is that we have that Go Ryan 16 cartoon 16
T-shirt,
T-shirt. And, even though we know it's not Ryan Truex, but it comes across the line, I'm like, holy shit. Brett Moffitt won.
Yeah.
Like, this is totally unexpected. And I probably just blew up the volume on our microphone, but like, that was so cool. It was like, oh man. And I'm so glad that we made the decision to go down to victory lane because we're going to get to see somebody new because everybody expected it was going to be Kyle.
And his whole crew running down there and excited and going crazy and trying to find hats.
Bonkers.
And going nuts.
It was awesome.
Yeah,
that was legit. Like, if you could have asked for a better victory lane celebration than that, I don't know that you could.
Right. So moving on to Xfinity and Cup, I mean, Harvick takes both of those. Here's the thing for me, Weaver, is there's so much potential at Atlanta with this tire fall off, and the uniqueness in what Atlanta has to offer. We see. I was talking about it on the MOATF podcast, so shout out to Andrew and David there. We had a blast this week, earlier this week, talking. And they're out of the UK, which is so cool. But my thing is that with this tire fall off, it's so unique in Atlanta. Yet, and as part of that, we see these 2-lap, 3-lap guys down that are passing the leaders because of tires, and you just don't see that anywhere else. You don't, even if you get new tires, you might be making up quarter seconds or half seconds, but you're so far behind. But these guys are making up 3 seconds.
3.5, 4 at some
right,
points.
and they're passing the leaders. So you've got these lappers passing leaders. You've got all these different strategies and stuff going on. And two things about that. Number one is we still have one person that, or just a small group of people that are dominating this race. And number two, a total lack of cautions with all this stuff going on with no rubber on the track because it rained, with lap cars passing the leaders under green flag, and we still had
and vice versa when those fast cars put tires on, they were
oh my gosh,
looked like they were 40 mile an hour faster.
Right.
And clusters of cars they were entering turns with. How do we not have cautions? That was crazy.
Right. So Weaver, your thoughts on why didn't we have more cautions, and why is this thing so dominated by a few with those sort of parameters?
So I don't think there were a lot of cautions because I think that, it's cliche, but I think there's a degree of truth to it. These are the best stock car drivers in the world. And when you have guys who are this talented, it's just harder to come by cautions. And I think that's actually a story that you could apply to a lot of the racing products in general. If you go back 20, 30 years ago, I'm not saying that those guys weren't as talented or they weren't as physically fit. But I think that back then, racing wasn't this kind of perfect science. And I think you could apply it to any sport, whether it's baseball with how much digital analysis we have now and sabermetrics, and same thing with basketball and football. We now have a science we can apply towards every aspect of driving a car to make sure that these drivers aren't falling out of the seat and aren't making mistakes. And we have Dartfish, which is a way to figure out where you're losing time or how to maximize grip. And I think when you put all this together, these guys are just really good, and they are mistake-free. But here's another thing that I want to address is there are a lot of fans who hated this race. And I wasn't one of them. I love Atlanta, and I love this Atlanta race too. And I don't mean to rag on TV, but I think the reason that a lot of people didn't enjoy this race was probably the TV production element, because I know from sitting in the stands on Saturday to watch the Xfinity and truck guys go, that if you were to just put your camera on the battle for the lead or an occasional story inside the top 10, you're going to miss things. Because that place, the groove is so wide, and you can dart around from left to right and up and down the racetrack, that if you're just focusing on the leaders or specific battles, you're not going to see the action on the track. But I was on the in-car camera for the 4-car when it was going through the fields after the lap 30 competition caution, and they had to go back to secure the lug nuts. I was on the in-car, and it was just wild. And to me, TV is not following that view, obviously. But if you were in the stands watching the 4-car drive through the field or watching the 78 car go from worst to first, that was a show. That was the show. And TV is just not focusing on it. So to me, I just think that Atlanta is such a dynamic track. It's such a dynamic surface. But it's probably one, like a lot of tracks, that you probably need to see in person because you need to follow a car, follow a battle. To watch a guy, start his apex high, get to the middle of the track still high and decides he's got to jump low. He can jump low, and he can make that work because there's no grip anywhere, but there's the same lack of grip from top to bottom. So to me, it's just good racing on a wore-out racetrack, and you've got to see it in person to truly appreciate it.
That's something I was saying earlier this week, Sherwin, is in person, this race is so cool to watch all the different, A, the strategies going on, B, like I just said, when you're seeing 2-lap down guys getting their lap back the hard way, but doing it like the other guys are standing still is really cool to watch, and you're seeing all this. I mean, 3 wide on lap 135, not even for the lead, but it's with the leader because they're trying to pass him. It's unbelievable that all the stuff going on. And so if from the I can't comment on the TV production, but if the TV production is just sort of focusing on the leaders, I could see how this would be a boring type of race. But I had to blink my eyes a few times, especially middle to late race, Sherwin, where it was that good I wasn't even blinking.
Yeah, well, so we only had to wait, and Matt can attest to this, but we only had to wait between 32 and 38 laps before stuff got really crazy. Yeah. Because somebody would pit,
or stuff would happen,
and they would have it was like you had grease lightning you put on your 4 tires, like you were a supercharged, and you would go down in there into turn 2 or 1 or 3 or 4, and you would be like ready to pass 4 cars in the same swoop. It just matter of, did you set yourself up right? Are you seeing where these guys are? Do you know how to hit the right lane? And if you didn't pass them then, you'd pass them down the straight or on the crooked stretch on the front. And so that was, I mean, in person, that race was really neat to watch. And then you look up and you go, oh, there's only 5 cars on the lead lap. Well, golly, what I'm seeing is not indicative of that, right? It's not. Oh my God, I don't know. The change is so amazing. How much faster it was when you put those new tires on.
Like I said, it's so unique to
40
Atlanta.
40-mile-an-hour difference entry speed. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
It was the difference between entering the corner at 175 and entering at 215.
And we were talking to Ed Clark, president of Atlanta Motor Speedway. I shouldn't say we were talking to him. He was talking to us. Like, we just wanted to shake his hand and say, hey, and thank you for
we
having
just
us.
kind of made him aware of our presence.
Right. And then he was showing us stuff on the track. We thought the conversation was over, and then he'd be like, let me show you this thing. Here, come here. Look at this. Look at this. And then he started, we asked him about weepers. He was like, oh, there's a weeper over by my office. There's one over here on turn 1. There's one behind us.
Yeah, he's like, there's 2 here by my office. There's 1 over there. There's 3 on the back stretch. There's 1 over there. And we actually just sealed the 1 over there in turn 2 on Saturday. Like,
yeah. So it's like all this drama about rain and weepers and stuff, and like he already knows where the potential issues are. It was really cool talking with him about us, or talking with us about that. With that said, it feels like, Weaver, Atlanta is not a good indicator of the cookie cutters at this point with that unique style of track. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I've been telling people all week, both verbally and through the written word, that you can take all the data that you've acquired from Daytona and Atlanta, and if you're trying to extrapolate it and try to make some sort of prediction about the rest of the season, you can take that paper, ball it up, throw it away, and start over. Start over this weekend, because to me, we're going to Vegas. I'm not going to Vegas. They're going to Vegas. And who won that race last year? Martin Truex Jr. on the way to his championship. And I think this is the first real indicator to what the season's going to be about, just because the dynamics that are in place. I've used that word a lot today, but the dynamics that are in place for those two tracks are just different than anywhere else. And those two tracks are fun, Daytona and Atlanta, and it's a shame that the more tedious races are more suggestive of the rest of the season, but that's the life we live right now.
So I'm going to be a little bit contradictory, or just play the other side of the card, or however we're going to call it.
Devil's advocate.
So we're not supposed to look at what the Fords did at Atlanta and say, man, the Fords look good.
Good question.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't buy it. And I've said this on Twitter, and that's fine because I know less than most of y'all that write about this sport and have been doing it for a career. I don't buy it. I think Atlanta is absolutely a data point on who is going to be good in the early part of the season on intermediate tracks. Because while the tire wear absolutely matters and whether or not you can manage it, everybody was managing it this weekend. You still have to be fast.
Well, I would argue that from just the standpoint that if you look at the results this week, and if you look at the results at this race last year, there were just outliers. And if you look at the top eight have 8 years or more experience of Cup racing. And I think they've been through this routine so often, so frequently, and they are the absolute best at driving their cars, at managing tires. You don't have to manage tires in the Xfinity Series. I mean, to me, a perfect example is William Byron. William Byron was taken to school by his own admission and by Darian Grubb's own admission after the race, because between having to deal with the driver-controlled track bar and having to deal with stages that were pretty much that had green flag runs the length of truck and Xfinity Series races. I just think that this was a veteran heavy kind of race, and that you really just can't read much into it. And I've talked to enough crew chiefs and engineers and the drivers themselves, and they will all be the first ones to tell you that there's a little you can take out of it. You can look at the data. You can look at raw downforce numbers. You can look at the first couple of laps, although tire fall off is just so severe there. But you can look at your first lap or two, your qualifying laps, and they'll show you a little bit. But when you get 4 or 5 laps into a run at Atlanta, you just stop looking at the data. You stop acquiring the data, because when you go from Atlanta to Vegas, California has a lot of fall-off. So California is very similar to Atlanta, but it's a 2-mile track. But you start to compare it to Charlotte or Texas or Dover and Kentucky. It's a lot more similar to Vegas, just because with that fall-off, you've completely taken so much of the engineering out of the equation, and it's the driver. It's kind of the perfect racetrack for a fan, because we say all the time that, let's take the engineering out of it. Let's put it in the driver's hands. Well, you've got the low downforce package, and you've got a track that just chews up tires, and you've got to be able to conserve and manage. So, to me, look, you take a little bit of data out, especially early on in a long run, but once those tires are gone, and once they're completely gone, there's just not a lot that you can extrapolate from it. Because if you take a car at Atlanta 20 laps into a run, there is nothing you can apply that to anywhere across the schedule. There is no track. You can take a car that's 20 laps into a run in Atlanta with those tires, this downforce. There's nothing. And so, again, I think qualifying run, early run speed, but I still think Ford's going to be behind the 8 ball a little bit. I think the optical scanning station has leveled the playing field more than anyone could have hoped. But I think that Toyota is going to be dominant early. I expect them to be dominant this weekend. And Chevrolet is going to be, once they get to midsummer, because remember, they have a new car this year. Toyota had a new car last year, and it took them to be about midsummer for them to figure it out, too. So I still think Ford is going to be number 3
Except
in the pecking order,
Truex won at Vegas,
even though they had a good day.
Yeah. No, good points. Let's move on to the questions, Sherwin. We've got a boatload of questions for you, Weaver, so we're just going to fire through them, whether it's lightning round or whatever. Mick Rose at GoDucks42_Mick says, with the spec engine rule, wouldn't the easiest place for a new manufacturer to enter the sport be the truck series? That's an interesting question for a new manufacturer to be in the truck series. It almost feels like, who would that be? I don't know. Anyway, Weaver, your thoughts?
It's an interesting thing because no one's going to just jump in the truck series and that be it. I think you're going to have to be in all three tours, and eventually you're going to have to start developing OEM parts for Xfinity and for Cup. But I think that if you had a plan to develop those parts and equipment, it's easier than ever before to at least jump into the truck series. If you had a team that you wanted to be an affiliate of, and you could develop that relationship, and you could develop drivers, you could craft a long-term plan. But it's not as simple as, well, I'm just going to go be in the truck series because all I have to develop is a body and, a manufacturer relationship. I still think that for someone to be an OEM in today's NASCAR, you've got to be prepared to service all three, or at least have some equipment out there. I mean, to me, Dodge is the easy one. I know people keep shooting them down, but they still have the Cup body they had built a couple of years ago. They've got engines and equipment. They are still the majority supplier in Canada in the NASCAR Pinty Series. I just don't see, I don't see an OEM coming, and I don't think the Truck Series moving to a spec platform makes it any easier.
I think so. In the chat here, we've got Travis and Roger and Carl's talking about Nissan in trucks, which I could totally see. I think the suitors that we've talked about recently, like BMW, I almost feel like you need an offering, and you just talked about it, OEM sort of thing. Like I couldn't see BMW in the truck series without being in all three. Like they either have to be in all three or start with Cup or something. It would be a weird deal for them to be in trucks just to start with. So you almost have to have an OEM, like you said, offering.
So I can't believe I'm going to do this to my guy, Brent Dewar. But if someone who's listening to this podcast wanted to put on their private investigator's hat and go chase a story, I sat down with Brent at Daytona to do a magazine story on the NASCAR president. And one of the things that I learned is that he has a vehicle that he drives to the office that represents all three manufacturers. So that means he's got a Ford, he's got a Chevy, and he's got a Toyota. But he's got a fourth vehicle that he often drives to the office or drives to events or drives here and about of the fourth manufacturer that they're currently negotiating with. And that's part of his pitch that, I'm loyal. I drive the cars of our manufacturer partners, and I'm driving your car because I want you to be a manufacturer partner. So if somebody wants to, scope out the big glass office at Daytona and see what Brent Dewar is driving, I think that might get the answer to the question you're looking for.
I like it. I like the
Isn't that interesting?
The tease. I like the tease.
Well, Nissan has a V8. So for those that are trying to go down that vein and want Nissan to be a part of maybe trucks first, not that that has anything to do with what Matt just said, but Nissan does have a V8. I'm sure they can figure out how to make it a center cam push rod. Mm-hmm. And if they want to play, they're probably, they can come play.
You know what's funny? I drive a Dodge, and my wife drives a Nissan. So,
and that's been the same for over a decade.
Yes, that's
she
true.
She used to have a Sentra, now she's got the little SUV. She's
got
nice.
the Rogue thing going. Yeah. So, I would love to be in
and
support.
I drive a Ford Mustang, by the way.
I drove the Dodge when Dodge was in, and now Dodge is out.
Dodge is still in though.
I want
Ram.
Yeah. So I want both of those to be in now, so I can be a supporter again.
Love to see Nissan and Dodge. In all three series.
Yeah. So William Soke at William Soquet, and
they said it was a Belgian name.
Thank you for the.
I misconstrued it as being French.
Okay,
and he corrected me.
No, I
heard him. He called into Lap Traffic this past week on their hotline, and it was like Soke.
Oh, perfect. I appreciate the phonetic spelling here because I've only got one chance to say it right, and then I'll say it wrong for the rest of my life. He asked if I'm going to construe this a little bit.
Twist it how you twist it.
Yeah. I'm going to twist it for Weaver here. Weaver, if you could cover exclusively one series for a year, obviously all financials aside and everything,
regional or national, I guess,
regional,
right?
national, car type, whether it's late models or modified sprints, midgets, etc. What would be your ideal to cover for a year?
I don't think I would ever want to stick to one, which is why I've gone the direction that I've gone now. And I know that sounds like a cop-out, but let me kind of break it down and explain why. This year, I've got the opportunity, I feel like, to do a lot of different things, which is exciting. A lot of that is through Auto Week and being able to enjoy the diversity of all the different racing that we cover with sports cars and NASCAR and IndyCar. Next weekend, I'm going to Vegas for the Mint 400, which is a big off-road event right there on the California-Nevada border. We're doing that, and then on Sunday, I'm going to fly down to Phoenix for the Cup race. But also through Short Track Scene, we're growing that brand this year, and I've got the opportunity to kind of dance around and do a bunch of different races for that website. I'm going to be able to cover my usual super late models, late model stocks. I'm going to knock out some NASCAR wheel and modified tour races. I promised some of our supporters in Canada that I'm going to go up to north of the border for the NASCAR Pinty Series this year, and I'm looking forward to that. So to me, I don't think I would ever want to cover one. I don't cover all of these different tours because I'm dissatisfied with one, but I genuinely love racing. I know that sounds like a cop-out, but to me, I think to really understand any one discipline, to understand and cover and write and talk about with authority any one discipline, you have to understand the sport of motorsports on a base level. And to be able to do that, I think that you've got to be able to talk to racers across multiple diversities. I'm trying to get more into dirt this year. I'm going to go down to Indiana Sprint Week and hang out with the boys from Toyota and experience that lifestyle later this summer. I'm going to try to cover some Lucas Oil dirt races. I want to get to the Chili Bowl next January.
Yeah.
That's something I want to knock off the bucket list. So to me, it's just a matter of, and this is very self-centered, but to me, to be the best motorsports journalist and writer that I can be, I don't think it does me or my readers or talking to you guys any service by just sticking around in one discipline. I want to be this generation's Dave Despain. He retired in January. I want to take Dave Despain's place as the preeminent motorsports authority across the board. So to be able to do that, I need to experience diversity. So that's why I wouldn't say just one. I love them all equally. I love racing, and I want to cover all the different forms of racing.
Well, certainly, first and foremost, do not ever belittle yourself by any means by saying that for some reason you deciding that you want to be all-encompassing in motorsports somehow deludes what your content might be. So, I mean, that question was not designed for you to pigeonhole yourself. Actually, I think one of the reasons why we wanted to ask it and why we appreciated the question from William Soki is that it would give you an opportunity to say what you just said is like, look, I want to be all things, not to all people, but I want to be all things racing because I love all things racing.
Yeah.
And if that's what you love, that's what you do.
Yeah, yeah.
I had someone that I work with and around in reference to the fact that I had gone to a late model event when I could have gone to a major league event. I had someone say that, well, is that something that Marshall Pruitt, the sports car IndyCar rider with Racer, is that something that he would do, choosing to go to a late model race when you could just be the major league guy? And my immediate thought was, I don't want to be Marshall Pruitt. I want to be a Robin Miller. I want to be a Dave Despain. And that's not to be a knock on Marshall. Marshall has a great engineering background, and he's found a home in IndyCar and in sports car. But my heroes were Robin and Dave, and for all the reasons that I just outlined. And hopefully people can eventually understand that better, because I think sometimes I have to explain to people who I work with why I don't just settle in one discipline because I want to be a racing guy, and I think sometimes the education process has just been a challenge.
All right. Well, we'll get to the next question. We appreciate your response there. And
Before we do that, I want to throw a question back at Sherwin.
Sure.
I'm getting teased at right now. I'm growing a beard for the first time. I've got a monster beard. And, initially it was going to be an off-season beard. And so he rolled into Daytona, and we were so overwhelmed with Daytona stuff, so I couldn't shave the beard. And so now here we are. And it's it is March now, and I haven't shaved the beard. And I'm getting crap from Cassie right now because she held up a pair of scissors, and she looks at me and says, "Did you just cut your beard with scissors?" And I know at times yours has been pretty substantial too. Have you ever shaved or cut parts of your beard with a pair of scissors? I'm trying to win this argument right now.
Absolutely not.
That's funny.
I have clippers when I need to pass the gate, but no, I'm actually at max growth here, not max as in max potential.
Right.
I'm at max that I have done in terms of time, and I'm going to keep going because it doesn't itch and it's fun. It's awesome.
Sherwin's got a fantastic beard.
What are clippers but skinny scissors, though, right?
Right?
Yeah. Scissors need to go away. Don't worry with scissors.
There's
too much danger with scissors.
I've had the goatee for about 13 years now, and the only time I've used scissors is like when I'm at work and I had just trimmed, and there's that one that you're like,
somehow
what
snuck through.
Yeah, it snuck through.
It was like hiding in your mouth.
Right.
You didn't know.
Right. So you go grab a pair of scissors and knock it off, but I hadn't done like a full trim with that. So
no.
Yeah. What's the next question, Sherwin?
So Andrew Cansian, Cansian from up in New York. He's a college student. Always been a big supporter.
Love it.
Which prospect? Now we've had a lot of prospect news on the interweb after Bob Pogras published his list. Which
I must have missed that story. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm sure you don't. Yeah. Well, just pretend like this is the first time you ever heard a question like this. Which prospect do you think is flying under the radar the most? And this underrated. And this doesn't have to be Cup. It doesn't have to be Xfinity. It doesn't have to be trucks. It can be anything, anywhere. Who do you think is flying under the radar that's going to be a thing?
It's harder to answer who's under the radar because I feel like when I cover someone, I either give like a full-throated endorsement or I just don't cover them at all. So to me, I don't know if I can ever put someone under the radar. But I think if I were to sit down and think about it, I can go level by level. I think that Daniel Hemrick, obviously, is a star waiting to happen.
Hell yeah.
And, I think in his first year in Xfinity, he didn't win a race, but he was able to just grit and gut his way to the championship 4, and then he dominated that early part of the race at Homestead and probably should have won the championship if not for the issue on pit road. I think Daniel Hemrick was born to be a Cup Series driver, and he's had to go through so much just to be able to get to this point. Truck Series drivers, obviously we talked about Brett Moffitt, and obviously, he emerged as a star this past weekend. I don't know how I would answer that. Obviously, if you guys would throw at me, who do I think the best prospects are? Obviously, Todd Gilliland comes to mind. If you were to ask me to pick someone number one right now, I would want Todd Gilliland to be my number one draft pick. I think Chase Briscoe is really underappreciated. In fact, now that I think about it, I'll tell you exactly who I think my most underrated prospect is because he drove this past weekend, and that's Kyle Benjamin. I wrote a story about him in Auto Week this week. I've been watching Kyle Benjamin since he was 13 years old when he was driving Pro Late models at Mobile, and this guy is just super, super talented behind the wheel. The issue is he doesn't come from a lot of money. He doesn't have a bombastic, in-your-face, marketable kind of personality that you can sell to a company. But to me, this should speak volumes. That when Kyle Busch had to miss the first round of practice for the Snowball Derby because he was doing NASCAR championship requirements in Las Vegas. The first guy he calls up to shake down his car is Kyle Benjamin, because he knows that if someone's going to make sure that that car is ready for him to go down and eventually win that race that Sunday at Pensacola, it needed to be Kyle. And Kyle basically brought no money to his 2 Xfinity Series starts. He had 6 last year and might be at the end of his rope. I'm going to give that, again, that full-throated endorsement for Kyle Benjamin, because when it comes to just being a driver, not necessarily the total package, but the driver, he is so underappreciated. And so that's the guy that immediately comes to mind.
Awesome.
Another one, too, Mason Mitchell. He's not really driving as much anymore. ARCA champion 3 years ago. Ran out of money. But those are my 2 that I would say is Kyle Benjamin and Mason Mitchell.
That's awesome. All right, so we're going to close up the Ask PETM section of the show today with from Scene Vault, at Scene Vault. Who was your favorite Busch series? So we're going back to like 2005.
Going way back.
Before Nationwide came on board. Who was your favorite Busch series editor at Winston Cup Scene? And I have a feeling there's a connection there.
I'm guessing that comes from Rick himself. I'm not sure if that was Rick's title, though. So I think I got goaded into saying Rick Houston. And so I'm going to be on the safe side. I'm going to say Rick Houston.
Okay, so I knew that was like a 2-word answer, so we're going to go ahead and give you one more before we get to the Strange with Staying and close this thing out. So I'm going to ask a question from Frank Villat, at Frank Villat. If you were building a racetrack from the ground up, what would it be in terms of length, banking, and shape? And where in the country would you put it? And what series would you have race it?
So I'm going to give you 2 answers, because I'm going to have fun with this one.
Here we go.
I'm going to give you my unrealistic answer. I'm going to give you a realistic answer.
That's the way we want it.
My unrealistic answer, maybe slightly inebriated, this is the closest to inebriated you'll ever hear me, is I would build Martin's Dega. And Martin's Dega, in one corner is Martinsville Speedway. It's the tight, short hairpin, and then you get down on the backstretch and you go for about a mile. And then you get there and it's wide open, 30-degree banks, and you ride the thing wide open in 3 and 4. You come back down the front stretch, and you better whoa her up, because you're going to have to slam on the brakes in 1 and 2 again. And you're going to have to go through brakes, I feel like, every, 10 laps. But by God, I would build Martin's Dega.
Well, so you got
to, or is it Degaville? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so you got to have you're going to have to leave all the brake ducts open, which means as you're approaching 170, 180 miles an hour on the back
squirrely with
you're going to have all that air coming underneath the car, and then you get down to turn 1, and you got to like whoa her up for a 12-degree corner.
I love it. I love it
too. That's awesome. All right, let's go ahead and get the Strange with Staying. You know how to close this thing out.
No, realistically, though, I do want to say Salem Speedway. Salem Speedway is, to me, the best, raciest racetrack in the world, and I would take Salem Speedway and I would drop it somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, because they need a racetrack, they want a racetrack, and to me, it should be a short track, and Salem's the best.
Right, with like one of those big old like rodeo roofs that doesn't have any walls.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because they built some big old rodeo arenas that have roofs but don't have walls. Why can't we have a racetrack in one of those things?
Yeah.
All right. So, this looks like a quick, like a 2 or 3 word answer from Rico Porter. What races will Go Tinks attend this year?
Will who attend?
Your kitty cat.
Oh, Go Tinks. Go Tinks. That's a good question. I'm probably going to take Go Tinks with me to Indianapolis for the month of May, since he's going to be there for the entirety of the month. But I think that's really the only race that I take him to. He's going to stay. We're in the process of moving back to Mobile, Alabama, later this month, and so I think he's going to stay in Alabama for the majority of the year.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So, as everyone that's listened to PETM for as long as they may or may not have, they know we end with Strange with Staying. Miss Ashley J. Staying gives us an off-the-wall question. We got a headline this week. A Toledo man was stabbed for choosing dark chocolate over milk chocolate, presumably, based on the rest of this question, during Valentine's Day for his
Okay.
significant other. The question is, what's the worst Valentine's Day blunder you've ever committed or heard of?
Wow.
I got nothing on this. I can't even participate. It's been so long.
Yeah, leave it to Ashley to come up with the head scratchers.
Right. So
Yeah.
here's so with me and Serena. I mean,
Valentine's Day was 2 weeks ago.
right. So, but here's the thing with us on Valentine's Day is I think we're both kind of logic minded on Valentine's Day. It's like, why do we need to celebrate on that exact day? Why don't we like delay it a couple
And have
days?
more fun.
And then you get all the stuff on sale. I once bought Serena, I believe it was 10 heart Valentine's things, and stacked them up and like had them all over the house and stuff. 2 days after, because it was like
They were $2 a piece.
Yeah, that was the thing. It went from like $6 a piece to like 2 for 99 cents.
Right.
Hit them all
yeah.
over the house.
I mean,
that's the way to be. So and she was laughing and whatnot.
Love, don't.
Yeah, Valentine's Day.
Or whatever it is.
My theory is that Valentine's Day is going to go away with the new generation. That's not going to be a thing anymore, or it's going to be such a low.
There's the whole stank and the other thing.
Well, people just see through it now. You know, it's like why are we doing this?
It's a
today?
Hallmark holiday.
Right. And I think people are a little more attuned to that
Savvy
nowadays. Yeah, savvy to that. So to your point, I really haven't had any blunders because we've both been just we kind of laugh at it. And here's the thing: we'll make a nice dinner or whatever, but we're not going to go spend $300 out on dinner. And I've got to buy
for 2 hours.
and I've got to buy flowers, and she's got to do blah blah. Like it ain't like that.
So here's the point y'all need to understand. Rusty is happily married and very much in love with his wife. They don't need like special occasions per se to show how much they love each other.
So I bought her a card this year on Valentine's Day, and it says, "You're so hot that Soup be like, damn."
Right. I read that and I was like, that's funny.
Yeah.
And,
So
that's what I love
kind
about
of,
these guys. That's probably why I'm friends with them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can get to a place with your significant other where like all you have to worry about is, hey man, can we just make sure we have this night to hang out?
Yeah.
Like that's the spot you need to be in.
Yeah. So I don't know. So we've beaten down Valentine's Day here, but Weaver, do you have any Valentine's Day either blunders or total like hits?
You know, the only one that I think of that was it was a great learning experience was my first like real steady girlfriend when I was 15. I made the cardinal mistake of buying a girlfriend clothes, which, you know, to me as 15 years older, as a 30-year-old, I'm like, what in the hell were you thinking, son?
Yeah.
Made the face.
And so that's the one that sticks out.
Yeah,
Bless my
yeah.
heart.
So is Cassie around to come say hey to close the show out?
She can be, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Bring her on in here and let's ask her this question.
Oh, that's actually a great point. What her biggest Valentine's Day blunder has been, or received,
blunder.
right,
Or
right,
or perceived.
or
blunder.
perceived. And if she says 2018, that we might have.
Yeah, we'll
might need to have a
apologize
talk.
in advance, Matt, if that's how it turns out.
So we've got her here to close out the show. What is the assignment here?
Okay,
All right.
so Cassie, so we got a headline here for The Strange with Sting. It's a Toledo man was stabbed for choosing dark chocolate over milk chocolate.
And by the way, he was right.
He was
Dark chocolate
100%
beats
correct.
milk chocolate every day.
On a
But
Valentine's Day present.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
And the question is, what is the worst Valentine's blunder you've ever received or witnessed?
Ooh, so my dad got my mom a treadmill for Valentine's Day.
Oh, my God! Oh, my God!
Actually,
Oh, shit!
and she would tell us that story every Valentine's just to rub it back in. It was one of those
Wow.
unforgivable things.
That is probably not okay.
That is fantastic.
Oh, I didn't realize this was
Wanted
going to
one,
go
but
that
was
well.
not the right holiday. Just not the right one.
Is her right holiday to buy your SO a treadmill?
Only if you've already put like
I
100
really
miles
don't
on it
think
before
so.
you
I think
give
that's
it.
something I'd buy myself.
That is cringeworthy.
Wow. Now, how
I
long
would
did
definitely
he?
never do that.
How long did he spend on the couch? And where is that treadmill today?
I never saw it. I don't think it lasted very long.
Oh man, that is
Oh, Cassie,
fantastic.
thank you so much for joining us.
That's great.
That is
Anytime.
fantastic.
Oh man. With that, Matt Weaver, why don't you close us out? Tell us where everybody can find you. What you're up to next?
Oh, Matt Weaver AW on Twitter, Matt Weaver Motorsports on Facebook. You can follow me all over planet Earth, and that's pretty much how it's going to be this season. And having short track scene, also autoweek.com/racing. Living the dream. That's what I'm doing nowadays.
We're going to Vegas next week.
Vegas!
Vegas, baby. Sherwin, we'll have to do some picks later on, I guess. It's no
Oh,
big
hell
deal.
with it.
Yeah. We'll post them on Twitter and whatnot. It's been a blast. Matt Weaver, thank you so much for joining us, and we got to do this again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
And with that, we're going to close her out. Y'all, you know where to find us. It's PTMpodcast.com, at PTM Podcast, and just search PTM Podcast. You'll find us somewhere doing something. As always, I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace, at Tailgate Mayor.
And I am pregame engineer at pregame engineer.
And we will talk to y'all next week for sure, and we'll be at Phoenix. If you're going to Phoenix, hey, hit us up. Let's figure
Yeah,
out
we're going
something.
to be at Phoenix, by the way.
Yeah, let's chat. We'll talk to y'all next week.
Screaming, drinks are pouring, we NASCAR, drop the flag, foot on the gas, and let's go, 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 go. And it's full throttle, it's wide open, it's cold beer bottles and good times rolling. We're built for speed and we ain't slowing down.
We're not slowing down.
It's finding the groove, it's the thrill of the chase. It's running on fumes in a checkered first place. We're stealing wheels and racing hard. We are NASCAR, we are NASCAR.
What's up, Matt?
Hey, I appreciate you guys. That was awesome.
Hey,
Man.
we enjoyed it too, man.
Had a blast. We're still live on YouTube, but that's it for the podcast. Thank you all the YouTube folks joining in. That was
Appreciate your time. Thanks for dragging Cassie in. That was fun too. I was laughing so hard I could barely even talk.
I know my answers are the longest-winded answers in the history of this podcast, so I know that we kind of went over there, but I appreciate the space to be able to do what I do and tell stories.
No, so I mean, we planned for that actually, Matt. Believe it or not, we know that going in, so we will write our show sheet as it were. I think we only ended up really skipping like one question that I didn't really care for, but no, like we write a really thin show sheet for you because you have a whole shitload of information that we don't have, and like an anthology that we don't have. So like we really just want to like poke you 2 or 3 times and let you go, and those things end up being like 15 to 20-minute bits, and it's perfect. Like it works perfect for what we're doing.
that's what we try to do.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Wind me up and let me go.
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
Yes, sir. Well, with that, I guess we ought to close her out and get her done.
Yeah, so we have to close this so Rusty can get it uploaded to iTunes. Thank you so much, Matt. Are you going to be in Phoenix?
Sunday only.
Sunday
Okay.
only.
Well, we'll try. I'll text you. If we can meet up, we can. If we can't, we can't.
Yeah, I don't plan to actually, because I'm not going to be there all weekend. I plan to be more of a, not that I'm ever really a fan, but I plan to have more of a fan experience on Sunday, so I should have some free time.
Okay, cool.
Excellent.
Well, we're flying in Friday afternoon and out Friday after mid-morning, I think. So,
Yep.
or what is it? No, Monday mid-morning.
Monday.
So
Yep.
we'll be there the whole weekend. Hopefully we can run into you.
10-4.
All right, brother. We'll catch you later. Thank you so much for joining, as always.
And tell Cassie thank
Appreciate you guys.
All right, man. See ya. Bye. All right. Well, YouTubers. I hope y'all enjoyed that.
YouTubers.
That was fantastic.
I'm in a hole on my roof.
Remember, no treadmill
I showed up in bed.
for that was not planned, y'all. I didn't know that. Like Sherwin, neither one of us knew that Cassidy was like going to be around / going to be available for that questioning, and she just nailed.
I may have known.
May have known.
Being redneck. I may have known she was going to be around.
Well, that she was there at that exact moment. Like she might have been out at the grocery store or something. But
oh yeah, right, exactly.
But
yeah,
point is, like,
it worked out pretty good.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it worked out pretty good.
That was fantastic. All right, y'all. We'll catch y'all later.
Woo woo!
Thank you for hanging. We'll see you next time.
Skip.